Playoff edition. New York Rangers forward Carl Hagelin suspended for 3 games for elbowing Ottawa Senators forward Daniel Alfredsson. This during yesterday's Game 2 at Madison Square Garden. Now, on the flip side of this, Ottawa Senators forward Matt Carkner has been suspended for 1 game for a quote, continuing to inflict punishment upon an opponent who was an unwilling combatant in an altercation. Let me translate. Basically, 1 game for sucker punching a person 7 times in the head. So the Rangers issued this statement on Carl Hagelin's suspension. We accept the NHL's 3-game suspension of Carl Hagelin and will not pursue an appeal. However, we are thoroughly perplexed in the ruling's inconsistency with other supplementary discipline decisions that have been made throughout the season and during the playoffs. We will have no further comment on this decision. You two have many further comments on this
I would agree with exactly what they're saying. And the one that comes to mind just in the playoffs is the Byron Bitts hit to Kyle Clifford. Kyle Clifford hasn't played since. It happened in Game 1, Vancouver, LA. Clifford not supposed to play tonight. And very similar, he only got 2 games and Hagelin gets 3. So I'm perplexed by a lot of it.
I'm easily perplexed and confused, as you've recognized around here. Yes. But I'm not confused about this thing with Carkner. I'm not confused because they made the wrong decision here. This is thuggery. This is like, I mean, Boyle gets his head wrapped against the glass several times. It looks like a pinball here. He knows he's going to do this. It's not defense of a teammate. This is vigilante justice. Look at that hit. Come on. 1 game, that's just not right. And look at that. He continues to that. That's not the honorable thing to do. Hockey's been an honorable game, even though it's been a tough game, way past honorable and way past a 1-game suspension.
So those decisions have been made, if they're confusing or not, but there are still several decisions that Brendan Shanahan has to make. One is on Andrew Shaw, his hit on Mike Smith, which happened last night. Interesting because we get into a situation where you're defending a goalie also. Yeah,
and I think he's going to get a 1-game suspension minimum. And, you know, he goes in here. It's an area where Mike Smith should be allowed to play the puck. He's in a defenseless position. And Shaw, without question, makes contact with the head. I don't think he targeted the head, but he didn't do enough to avoid hitting the head of Mike Smith. He takes it off right there. That's not an acting job by Mike Smith. He was clearly hurt on the play, rattled, shook it off, and luckily for Coyotes fans, he was back in the net, but there's a suspension.
Is severity of injury coming to play there? Because Alfredsson didn't come back in the game.
No, I mean, obviously, severity of injury is coming up time and time again. I don't know how it plays in. I mean, you saw Shea Weber try to punch a guy with full force. He missed him, and then he shoved his head into the glass with a little less force, and apparently because he wasn't hurt, even though the intent was there was no suspension.
All right, we got plenty more stuff to talk about.
I'm confused on that one.
Unfortunately, we do have other things to talk about, them stemming from the Pittsburgh-Philadelphia game. Asham, Neal, Adams. What do we make of this?
Well, he needs to make a statement about what's the penalty and what's a suspendable offense, and he needs to do it in a hurry because this was a wild, wild weekend all over the place in the NHL. Look at the cross-check to the throat and the hit for good measure while Schenn is down. Asham did get tossed. I think he's got to go to see Brendan Shanahan. I think he deserves to be suspended for this one. A cross-check to the throat, Keith?
Yeah, and there was more in this game. You got the hit right here from James Neal, leaves his feet. Obviously, Sean Couturier is an unsuspecting player. There's contact up high. Looked like the head. He may have caught the chest first, but no question that it's something that needs to be brought under control.
Nowhere near the puck. The puck is nowhere near him, and the puck is nowhere near, you know, Giroux at this point when he's targeting the head. There's no question that has to be reviewed. Now watch this. Crosby gets wound up with Hartnell, but it's Adams that comes in and starts taking advantage of a really defenseless Hartnell and hits him from behind. That's not how it's done. That's way past the bounds of what makes for a good hockey fight, and way past the bounds of what we would find acceptable in any day.
He's not coming to the defense because we heard
Crosby and Hartnell won a wrestling match. If he hovered around, it would have been fine. But you start hitting a guy in the back of the head when he's already engaged with somebody else. It's third man in. It's a whole bunch of things.
I agree. I just find the line's been blurred after the ruling.
Yes, it has, and it's time to unblur them.
All right. We had a clean game in Florida. We hope to